Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. This is Shaila Akhtar, Assistant Professor English. Today I'm here with an online class for the students of Honors 4th year, and the topic of our today's class is Wild Nights, a passionate love poem by Emily Dickinson from American Poetry. Let's have a look on the life sketch of Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson was born on December 10, 1830 in a small American town called Amherst. The population of this town hardly numbered 3,000, and this town was situated in the center of a huge semicircle of hills, and this town was considered as a beauty spot in the Connecticut River Valley. Her father, Edward Dickinson, was a lawyer, a congressman, and a trustee and treasurer of Amherst College. Emily was educated at home except for a year, 1847, at Mount Holyoke Female Seminary at South Hadley, and this institution was hardly 10 miles from Amherst. Emily was considered as an eccentric by the locals. She developed a penchant for white clothing and was known for her reluctance to greet guests, or later in her life to even leave her bedroom. Dickinson never married, and most friendship between her and others depended entirely upon correspondence. While Emily Dickinson was a prolific writer, her only publications during her lifetime were 10 of her nearly 1800 poems and one letter. The poems published then were usually edited significantly to fit conventional poetic rules. Her poems were unique to her era, and they contain short lines, typically lack titles, and often use slant rhymes and unconventional capitalization and punctuation. Many of her poems deal with themes of death and immortality, two recurring topics in letters to her friends, and also explore aesthetic aesthetics, society, nature, and spirituality. Emily Dickinson died on May 15, 1886 at Amherst. This is the most famous portrait of Emily Dickinson. Here is our poem, Wild Nights, Wild Nights. It is poem number 249. So this is a poem of 3 stanzas, and the first stanza we find the description of a union between a lover and a beloved, and the poet says, wild nights, where I with thee, wild nights should be our luxury. So here the poet sets the key of this song. For luxuries included the meaning of lust and lavishness of sensuous enjoyment, and this is echoed at the end in Eden, the image for the paradise of earthly love. And the theme in this poem is of passionate physical love, which is lawless and outside the rule of chart and compass, expressed in the second stanza. And the poet relates with it, saying, futile the winds to a heart in port, done with the compass, done with the chart. The passion lives by a law of its own, the law of Eden, which protects it from earthly wind and wave. The climatic vision is reached in the line rowing in Eden and sheltered luxuriously in those waters of paradise. While the wild storm of this world break about the lovers, such love was only possible before the fall. So the poet limits her yearning to just tonight, but the use of this word echoes the ecstasy with which the poem began and gives to the phrase wild nights a double reference to the passionate experience in Eden and to the world shut out by it. So Miss Dickinson here avoids the cheap pitfall of love lyric, the tendency to exploit emotion for its own sake, and instead she generates out of the conflicting aspects of love its ecstasy and its brevity, the symbol that contains the poem's meaning. So the setting of the poem, the image of a wild night of passion is captured through the images sketched in the poem Wild Nights, and it is a mental caricature of nights spent with the speaker's lover, and it is compared with the beauty of the heaven. Now, the style that Emily Dickinson followed to write this poem. The typical rhyme scheme of Dickinson is followed, and the second and fourth lines of each stanza rhyme. The poet uses punctuation marks with all her liberty. The abstract images are linked with ocean and other nautical terms, and Emily Dickinson's poetry is compact and language is forceful to convey the expression whatever she wants to preach. So the central idea or theme of this poem is love and passionate love making, which is lawless and out of rule of chart and compass, and the passionate love making involved in the process. The bond between two lovers and their passion for one another is explicitly portrayed in this poem. So we can consider one thing, that is the poetess gives emphasis on the bond between the two lovers. Analysis of the poem. This poem, Wild Nights, contains no narrative plot and no particular tale. Through three short quatrains of irregular punctuation, there is an extended expression of union with lover. So the storm raging in the beginning can be considered to be the one that is present inside the speaker's mind and the one outside. A passionate night of indulgence and privilege with the lover brings about the storm of strong emotions. So the luxury at the end of the first stanza can be understood or considered as the physical gratification and lust. In the second stanza, the poet speaks about the stability of love found even in the direct times. A heart waiting in the port shines so bright like a guiding light to her love that he no longer needs marital things like compass or charts to direct him back home to his beloved. The wind shall howl in futile to take them apart, for their love shall transcend all the obstacles thrown in their path, and the voice shall come to an end as it unites with the heart at the port. In the third stanza, the poetess makes use of ellipsis, making it obscure and incomplete, in a way leaving it at reader's liberty to indulge and add the missing piece. A sharp compression of articulation can be felt there, and at the ecstasy of physical gratification, one finds the pleasure equivalent to that found in the gardens of heaven, and once experienced the urge to feel it to its entirety creeps in. So the passion finds its place in the love life of the lovers. Biographical background. If we want to consider the biographical background of writing love poems by Emily Dickinson, then some informations are given here for you. That is, Dickinson's fame was established by her love poetry, and the identity of her lover remained a subject of gossip and speculation, and the biographical facts were never be determined about her love affair. The consequence of Miss Dickinson's first love was poetry. So it is clear that she was throughout her life devoted only to poetry, and her love was only poetry, and no human lover could be found who could be considered as the real lover of Emily Dickinson. Ecstasy of the lyric, or the ecstasy of her lyric poems. Spontaneity and control is essential to the pure lyric cry. Emily Dickinson's aim was to achieve a true fusion of thought and feeling. So, she did so in a series of remarkably precise analysis of intense pleasure and intense pain. And strong emotions like rapture and transport, anguish and misery occupy her most. Some deep personal experience of love seems to have given rise to the ecstasy of her lyric poems. Biographers have tried to identify a love affair in her actual life. In addition to fantastic conjectures, there have been theories linking her romantic attachment to two men, both of whom were already married and only dimly aware of it. So, of her hopeless passion, but the external evidence remains unsatisfactory. Whether the problem is ever solved or not, it remains a strictly biographical one. So, to conclude, we should mention about the privations of the poetess's life. So Dickinson is not a philosophical poet. Her poems record thoughts and feelings experienced naturally. She is a poet of inwardness and writes aphoristically. Dickinson's astonishing metaphysical conceits lead to her wild flights of imaginations. It is also possible to see the greater part of her poetry as an effort to cope with her sense of privation. She was deprived of an orthodox and steady religious faith. She was deprived of love, and she was deprived of literary recognition. So, one way in which she tried to cope with her sense of privation was to assert the paradox that privation is more plentiful than plenty, that to renounce is to possess the more, that the bouquet of abstemiousness defaces that of wine, and by those who never succeed. So her poetry at its most mature continually proclaims that to lose or forego what we desire is somehow to gain. This central paradox of her thought is a discovery and something about the soul, and it declares about the deprivation of love. So this poet gives us an information, that is, being with the person whom you love brings about unimaginable joy into life, and one needs to completely give oneself out to such a feeling to be felt in its entirety. And this gross and aggressive feeling we can feel through the poem written by Emily Dickinson, because of or as a result of the poetess's deprivation of love. So this is all for today, my dear students. We will meet again with another class very soon. Till then, stay home, stay safe. Thank you.